Hello, welcome aboard. Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench, and once again we are back with another Gaahleri, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, airbrush review. If you remember last week we did this one. This is the GHAC 98D, beautiful little thing this is. Use that one quite a bit now. And we've also got here, we've got the GHAD 68, which is the trigger airbrush. Very, very nice airbrush indeed. Haven't tried it on a model yet, but I did make the video that you saw. And now this one has arrived in the post. And I have opened the box to see what it looks like, but I haven't opened the actual box inside. So as you can see, it's come beautifully packaged in another box. And as you can see, once again, beautifully packaged in its own little bubble wrap envelope. And then in a lovely little decorative box. And this is the Mobius 0.2. And according to their website, this is their most popular airbrush. Now it's got a few little fancy design features, one of which I think is absolutely amazing, and the other one not so sure about, but we'll cover it anyway. So let's just slice this open and have a look and see what we've got in here. We are going to do a test, and we're going to look at some. We'll probably take it apart as well, just like we did with the others. So we'll get this plastic film off. So this is how we know that it hasn't been tampered with, and as you can tell, because the camera's on, the plastic's decided it doesn't want to come off, which is always the way. The camera always messes things up for us. Right, so we can see on the back here, it's got a unique tangent micro air channel nozzle. I'll show you that in a minute. I think that's brilliant. For superior low pressure atomization and fine lines, so we can get the compressor term right down and see how we go. Air valve designed for versatile painting techniques. Not sure what that means. Mirror level removable cup for effortless cleaning, so that means they've polished the internal side of the paint cup, so it's very, very easy to clean. Lightweight and ergonomic design, that speaks for itself. Main lever with adjustable tension, so basically you can turn this nut here, reduce the spring tension, so you can have it more comfortable if you want. Now last night, I'm not going to show you directly because some people don't like to see that sort of thing. Last night I cut my finger, so how that's going to affect me using this, I don't know. I was actually cleaning my air fryer, I went around the edge, and there's a sharp edge on the actual aluminium tray. I'm considering suing the manufacturers. No, not really, I'm not that sort of bloke. But if you do have a Tefal ActiFry, I think it's called, the round one where the food goes round and round, be very careful of the edge. So that is a very, very nice box. That is beautiful. That is the kind of quality you'd expect a bloody, £1,000 watch or something to come in. Really, really nice. And then in here we've got our customer notes. So it's telling us there, if we find an issue with the product, simply contact us to confirm the problem and we'll arrange for reshipment. So there we go. Every airbrush undergoes a series of stringent tests before leaving the factory to ensure that it meets our high standards. There's nothing in here like we had in the others about there may be paint residue, but whatever. And then here we have our instructions in lots of different languages, just as we did with the other one. So it's telling us on here, let's have a quick look on here. So we've got a quick start guide. So begin by attaching the end of an airbrush hose to your airbrush. Attach the male part to airbrush and the female part to air source, pull down to unlock. So the quick disconnect is sold separately. It looks like we're probably going to get the male quick disconnect. Yes, we are. It's with the airbrush, so that's cool. Somebody did ask, what's the point in having one of those with every airbrush and not having one of those? Well, the reason is you only need one female because you've probably only got one airline. So it's great that we have every airbrush coming with one of these quick disconnects, because then we can do that, use the airbrush, take the airbrush off and quickly connect the next one. If they didn't keep giving us these, we'd have to keep buying these and or either that or swapping them all over, which makes the whole quick disconnect thing pretty pointless. So they're telling us to add some paint. If you're only using a very small amount, you don't need to fit the paint cup. That's a feature I'm not that keen on, is having the removable paint cup, but that's just my little pet hate. Turn your air compressor on, press down the main lever to release airflow and pull back to release paint. If the preset fluid control knob, if equipped, can control the retractment of the main lever. I'll show you that in a minute. And then we've got quick adjust. Turn the knob to control the airbrush's airflow. Smaller airflow is better for detailed spraying in smaller areas. Mobius 0.2 only, and this one actually has that valve. Turn this knob to adjust the force of the main lever. So that knob there, which I'll show you in a second, you can turn that back and reduce the force, and then talking about the perfect spraying patterns, and then telling you how to disassemble it. So you remove the back, pull out the needle, remove the air cap, remove the nozzle, put the nozzle counter cap air back, please tighten the nozzle cap, replace the needle. A lot of people say the needle shouldn't come out the back. I don't ever worry about that. And then we've got to add lubrication. So they're saying lubricate the packing seal, lubricate there, and also lubricate the plunger if you're taking that out as well. So there we go. So that's our basically quick start guide. So it all looks pretty straightforward. So here's what we're getting in our pack. So we've got spare seals, and these are different size seals to what we have normally. We have a great big tube of lube, which is about 10 times bigger than what you get with Iwata. We have a little tiny paint cup. If I can get it out, it's quite awkward to get out because it's such a good fit, but that's a good thing because it means it doesn't all rattle around in the packaging. So there's a nice little tiny little paint cup there, and then we've got the airbrush itself. So we've got a protective plastic cap on the end, and we've got the actual workings of the airbrush there. So we've got our valve there, which will reduce airflow. Okay, you can see that's our packing seal there. I don't know why they've got a hole in there, but you can see there. You can see you'll see if you have paint leaking out. We have the quick release fitted, which is a good thing. So that's pretty cool. That's on there. That can all tighten up. And then we've got this fancy spiral design, whereas you normally just get a slot. Here we've got the spiral design. And what you can do here, I'll take this off to show you. You can undo the nut on the back, pull the needle back, and then you can undo this here, and that will reduce the spring pressure. If you obviously you can't feel the spring pressure because you're watching me on video. If I tighten it up, the spring pressure is slightly tighter. If I loosen it off, I can reduce the spring pressure. So let's just have a look at how this thing is made. So we'll take our needle out first. So there's our needle come out. This nut always falls off, so best unscrew it before it loses it in the carpet. It's nice actually because that's quite a big one in comparison. If you look at the Iwata one here and practically every other airbrush, you can see it's a bit smaller. But there we go. And then this is going to unscrew. So that's going to relieve our spring pressure. Okay, so that's going to unscrew from there. So now we have practically no spring pressure whatsoever. That's quite impressive. That's coming all the way out. And then we've got the plunger there, the spring. We've got the plunger there, which doesn't want to come out until we take that out. So I'm not going to take this out because I'm going to need a tool to take it out, and you probably won't have the tool. So I'm just going to leave that in. So basically the spring's going to go over there. And we've got this here there with a very fine thread on it, so that's really cool. So I'll screw that in like that. So the spring pressure there is next to nothing. I'm going to put the needle back in because the needle is what holds. The needle is holding the plunger in. Basically the needle goes through the plunger. Without the needle you can just pull the plunger up and out. So we can see our needle in there. You can see through the hole there, you can see the needle entering the back of the seal, the packing seal. So there you can see we can reduce or raise the spring pressure. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to leave it like that. Push the needle forward to contact the back of the nozzle and then fit our cup. What we're going to do now is take this cap off. I'm going to take this cap off and have a look at this beautiful nozzle. Now this I think is a very, very sensible design. As you can tell, there's no tools required to take the nozzle out, but you can see this nozzle here is fairly long and it's a fairly big chunky piece. It has this lovely little PTFE seal on the back rather than rubber, which is cool. It's a very long design, and you can see it has these slots going around the side. Now the 98 and the 68, they have these 6 slots going around. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as well. And these have like a spiral in them, so it makes the air spin as it comes around. I actually really see there is a point in having these because you're actually entering air into the nozzle all the way around rather than just from the bottom. I showed this before. If you look at this Iwata, and I'm not knocking Iwata at all, I'm just using it as comparison, you have an air hole at the bottom. Okay, so that air hole at the bottom basically fills that orifice around the nozzle and then blows out around the nozzle, which is wonderful, and it works, and pretty much every other airbrush on the market has the same design and it works. It's absolutely fine. But I could imagine when you're using very low pressures, the air will always take the easiest path, and I would imagine it would come out around the nozzle rather than go up and fill the air around the top and then come out. Whereas with this, the air is forced into those orifices, so it's forced to form even flow around the needle, and that's where I think, around the nozzle and the needle, and that's where I think its value comes in. I could be completely wrong, but it just seems to make sense. You know, something, I'm not sold on gimmicks. I'm not that sort of person. I'm an engineer, and I can see how this will probably work. So what we're going to do now is just push the needle forward. Just, if you notice, just very light pressure. Don't force it in because you'll damage the nozzle. We'll put that nut back on there. Just give that a tighten, and we'll fit this back over here. There we go. So we can tighten that to however we want it. Now we've also got this here, which I showed you before on the 98. So this here, you can see what it's doing. It's closing around the around the needle. So as I wind it back, it allows me to move the needle. So this is absolutely fantastic if you're doing panel lining or pre-shading, or you're doing a mottle camouflage. Literally, instead of having to go down and feel to come back for the paint, you can literally go down and back to a stop, and you've got the same every time. I'll show you that in a minute while we're painting. And then this one here, this actually reduces the airflow. So I'll show you that. I've actually got the airbrush, the air pressure on about 15-16 psi. Okay, and you can hear, if I wind this up, you can hear that's changing the air pressure, so you don't have to keep going to the compressor, which is great. The only downside of that is if somebody says to you, what's your optimum pressure for spraying? You're going to say, I don't know, because you don't know what pressure you're using. So what we can do here, if I turn the pressure up on the compressor, I turn the pressure up to, that's about 25 psi now on the compressor. You can hear that here we still only have a very low amount, but if I wind it out, we have quite a high amount. Okay, so handy little tool to have, unless you sort of rather know what pressure you are, and then just keep that open and adjust the pressure as you normally would on your compressor. So that's 25, that's way too high. I'm going to come back down to about, that's about 15 there. Okay, that's about 18 actually. Okay, so the paint cup will literally screw into here. Careful not to cross thread it. Just screw that in, just nip it down. The cap's a nice easy fit, that's good. The other one I've got is very tight. So that's going to go on there, and there's your cap. So you put your paint in and spray with it as normal. So I'm going to grab this is my dirty old cleaning station, and I've got a clean piece of cloth prepared. So we've got a clean cloth here we can use. Right, so let's get all this stuff to one side. So let's have a go at doing some painting. Now this is, as we say, this is a 0.2, so it's a 0.2 nozzle and needle, so it's tiny. So therefore the paint needs to be thinner. So what I'm going to do, I've got my, same as we've always done with the others, to keep it fair, I've got my Outlaw Paints dark green here. Okay, so we're going to use this, give it a good shake, make sure all the pigment's off the bottom. We can see it. When you look at the bottom of the bottle, you should be able to see paint and bubbles, and it's not fully mixed up. So if we don't fully shake it, this is the same one as I used before, isn't it? I'm sure it is. Yes, it is. It's the only dark green I have. Yes, it is. It's the same one. So that's settled pretty quickly. And you can see now, when you look at the bottom of the bottle, we can see we have, I don't know if you can make that out, but you can see the bubbly edge there where the paint's at. That means all the pigment's off the bottom, so that's what you want to be able to see. Okay, now because this is a 0.2 needle, the paint needs to be thinner than it normally would be. So what I'm going to do is just take a couple of drops of thinner. Okay, now I don't tend to, some people get very, very, you know, scientific about their mixes of paint. I'm just going to put a couple of drops of thinners in here. All right, and because it's a brand new airbrush, the first thing I'm going to do is blow it back through. You can see there, when I put my finger on the trigger, let's just put the top back on there. Always keep the lids on your thinners. As soon as I push that down, it's bubbling. That means we've got an air leak around the... I would do that normally, but as I say, I've cut my finger. I don't want to open that cut again. So what I'm going to do is make sure this needle is well seated. There we go. So when I pull back, we get air. If I'm forward, we don't. So that's the way to go. I'm just going to spray that out onto there. You can see there was something in there, just to make sure it's nice and clear. Okay, so we can put this back on. There we go. Right. So now we can get our... Oops, we need to put some thinners in first. Always put the thinners in your airbrush first, guys. Otherwise what happens is you end up with thick paint down around the nozzle. So just put a couple of drops of that in just to help it a touch. Yeah, if you put the thinners in first, then basically down here around the needle we've got thinners. Okay, if I put the paint in first, down here we'd have paint. And if the paint was thick, like a Tamiya XF or something, and then you add the thinners, getting it to come back right from that needle is going to be very difficult. So your first spray might be a bit spattery. Whereas if you put the thinners in first, it's easy to get it to blend because the thinners wants to actually dissolve into the paint. So we are going to put some paint into the cup, nothing too much, there we go, that's plenty. And then we're going to wipe the side of the cup. Always wipe the side of the cup, guys, because otherwise you will get paint running down here onto the end of your airbrush and then, yeah, I know I say it every time, but not everybody watches every video. You have to remember that. If you're one of my keen watchers who watches all my videos, you'll see me repeat myself a lot. And the reason for that is not everybody watches every one. So there we go. I've used Mr. Colour Leveling Thinners and Outlaw Paints Dark Green. Okay. So now to mix that, I can put my finger over the end of the nozzle. As you can see what that's doing, that's agitating the paint, it's mixing the paint and the thinners. And there we are. Just do a quick check. Oh, this is nice. Blimey, this is lovely. So if we wind the pressure right down, you can see here it's a little bit too low. For pre-shading and stuff, that would be absolutely amazing. Remember, the lower the pressure, the thinner the paint. Okay, if you can imagine, if you're in McDonald's and you've got a Coke, sucking Coke up through a straw is extremely easy because it's thin. It just runs up the straw. What you're actually doing is creating a vacuum and the air pressure is pushing the Coke up the straw. When you have a milkshake, it's much, much harder. So therefore, it's the same with the paint. Remember, the air pressure is not pushing the paint out. The air pressure is pulling the paint out. The air is running over the nozzle and the needle, and it is forming a vacuum which is pulling the paint around the needle, just like you sucking Coke up a straw. So you can imagine, the thicker the paint, the thicker the substance, the harder it is to come out, and it will come out in globules and bits and stuff rather than come out really smooth. So if you've got a higher pressure like that, you can get plenty of flow, lots of paint, really nice and neat. If you turn the pressure down, to basically nothing, it's going to be quite shadowy. Now what I'm going to do is show you on this piece of paper. Okay, so I've got the pressure set quite low. So if I come down here really close to the paper and using this hand to steady, you can see here it's very difficult to get a nice pattern. I'm pulling all the way back and nothing is happening. Probably got a bit of tip dry, to be honest. Alright, so there we go, that's better. Right, so if I wanted to do panel lining or something on a little 72nd scale aircraft, in fact, let me just find a scrap piece of plastic to show you rather than on the paper, and then I'll go through what we're going to do with this this stop on the back. Alright, so here's a Gaahleri wing. Okay, so we've got lots of panel lines on here, so if I want to pre-shade this, I would probably use black. But basically, I'm just going to, on a scrap of paper, I can see that I can get a nice bit of flow. I'm just going to reduce the pressure a bit. And if I pull right back, I get way too much paint. If I don't pull out enough, then I don't get enough paint. So what I'm going to do is wind this stop in on the back here. Okay. There's another thing I want to show you which is general to every airbrush, not just this one, other than a trigger airbrush. When you're airbrushing, there is an action you should take. In fact, I'm going to wind this back so you can see. What you should do is down for air, back for paint. Okay? Down for air, back for paint. What you must do when you're painting is down, okay, back, forward and up. Don't just go like that. I'll show you the difference. Okay, first time I'm going to spray some paint. I'm going to go down, back, and I'm going forward and up. And then when I come to the next line, you can see I go down, forward and up. Come to the next line, fine. If I do this, if I go down, back, and then just let it go, watch what happens when I go to start the next line. See that? That's spattering. What that is, because you've just gone like that, you've got paint sat around the end of the nozzle and needle. Noddle, there we go, there's a new word for combined. Needle and noddle is known as a noddle. So basically what happens next time you put the air on, it takes that paint off. So down, back, let it go, boof, spatter. Down, back, forward and up, no spatter. Okay, so for doing these panel lines, I want something fairly thin. So I don't want anything great big and fat like that. I want something fairly thin. I'm going to put the pressure up. There we go. And I'm going to screw this in on the back to restrict the amount of paint. So now you see I can go down and pull back and get the same, as long as I stay the same distance from the paper. Going really thin, really fine, too much air pressure. As you can see there, we can get nice fine lines. You can get a lot finer than that with a lot thinner paint and a lot of practice. And also I think airbrushes also bed in. I think the needle beds into the nozzle. I think everything beds in when they're brand new. I think they're a little bit, I don't know, the word I'm looking for I think is cumbersome. I'm going to turn the pressure up a bit. Pressure down a bit and we'll do some pre-shading. So here goes. Right, so I've got my wing here. I want to highlight all the panel lines. So all I've got to do is come down here. I can pull back as hard as I like, staying quite far away. I can come in a bit closer. Coming a bit closer, you'll see the line will get finer and finer and finer. So there we go, there's our pre-shading. And we've done our pre-shading with no risk of any worry about the line getting all stray or anything. The other thing you can do, you can hear me now, I'm not letting go on the air. I'm keeping my finger on all the time and that avoids any risk of spatter. So go down and then stay down on the air, move over to here, stay on the air. see I'm not getting off the air, I'm just staying down on the air. And then all these hatches, we'll do those. And there we are, we can come in nice and close. If you go in really close, you can see we get a nice line, but it's a little bit too much paint. Alright, so there we go. So there's your quick tutorial on pre-shading. You could come in and stop some more paint, so you can really make it last. Take your time and build it up extremely slowly, just like that. Alright, so if you are new to pre-shading and you're worried about massing your model up, this would be a great airbrush for you, because you can not only reduce the air, you can have the stop as well, so you've got full control and you're not using any memory skills in your fingers. You're just going down and back. You've got a preset, so I can go down and back as hard as I like, and as you can see, as long as I don't stop, it remains consistent. I'm just pushing down as hard as I can, pulling down as hard as I can, and keeping the airbrush the same distance from the paper. If I come away from the paper, as you can see, the pattern completely changes, and as I come closer to the paper, you can see the line comes down. Okay, so yeah, very impressed with this little thing. It's lovely. The other thing I like as well, they've got this cutout, and they've done it on both sides for left and right-handed people, and that is really nice for putting your thumb in, because you've got a very narrow, slender area through there. So it's very nice. Now for general painting, let's just pull this back so we can get full flow. And I'm going to bring that up so we've got the full sort of 18 psi. I've got spatter out of there, look. So for general painting, it's for a 0.2 nozzle, it's doing a bloody wonderful job. Yeah, it's lovely. It really is lovely. The other thing to do if you really want to avoid spatter, guys, and this isn't anything to do with Gaahleri, this is all about airbrushing in general. If you say you're doing some pre-shading on here on these panels, okay, if you're worried about spatter, just bring your air on off the model and then bring it on. Okay. It's the air that makes the spatter and not the paint. So if you start the air off the model and come on, you know, it doesn't matter. Even if you want to do something up here, you can start down here, move up to there, and you can see nothing's coming out. But when I pull back, the paint comes out. Okay, so that's just doing pre-shading as you would have to with something like this Iwata. You know, but with this one, you can set everything up so it's like mechanically locked. So you'll get consistent pre-shading all over your model. Having said that, I don't like consistent pre-shading. I like it to be a bit all over the place. So I would rather do it freehand, but that's because I've been doing it for years and I've got the memory in my fingers to do it. Airbrushing, people will tell you that you can read a book, you can watch someone on a video, you can watch me, you can watch whatever. It's something you have to have a go at and learn your own way. There are millions of people out there that will tell you you're doing it all wrong. There is no such thing as doing it wrong. If you're getting the results, yes, there are things doing wrong. Don't bang the end of the nozzle, don't bang the end of the needle, don't wash it out with hot soapy water, you know, things like that. Yes, remember those things, but things like, you know, whether you pull the needle out the back of the front, whether you strip your airbrush every time you use it and clean it, I mean, I think that's a waste of time. You know, if you use an ultrasonic cleaner, I don't like them. I'm an engineer, I've been responsible for ultrasonic cleaners, and I can see the damage they can do. If you've got metal components next to each other in the ultrasonics, they can actually destroy each other's finish. You won't see it under the naked eye, but you might do it on your airbrush and wonder why you can't get any decent flow. And the fact is you've destroyed the finish on your needle, perhaps. So But this, yeah, it's a Gaahleri Premium Mobius 0.2. They do a 0.3 as well. But this apparently is their best-selling airbrush. And as you can see, I'm going down closer and closer, and I'm reducing the paint. I'm putting hardly any paint out now, and it's coming finer and finer and finer. It's really nice. And as I was saying, with doing your blotchy camouflage patterns, like on your German D9 or whatever, it's too much. You can see I'm just leaving the air on. Too much. Bring the air down a bit. There you go. I'm just coming back to a mechanical stop, so I'm getting the same pattern every time. So, and if you come even closer, you can tighten that pattern up. As I say, the skill here is in setting the airbrush up There is no skill whatsoever in what I'm doing, because I'm just pressing down and coming back to a stop. So I'm basically going down, back, down, back, down, back. So down, back, down, back, 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 back. Alright, so hope you got something from that. Just going to use up this paint that's in here. With that tiny little setting, you can see we can build the paint up extremely slowly, or we can come back and we can pour it on, literally pour it on, just like so. And you can see here when I tell you about never using magic marker on your models, that's why. You can see it just keeps coming through. I can put more and more paint over there. The paint's run out now, but it just keeps coming through the paint. So there we are. So now we need to look at giving the airbrush a clean, and I'll quickly go through that with you, and then we'll say goodbye. Right, now I'm going to show you quickly how I clean the airbrush. There will be people that will comment. If they're rude, their comment won't show on the screen, but if they're polite and they kindly say that I'm doing it wrong, I will let you see them for their opinion, because you may form your own opinion from what they say. But people say I do this wrong. That's absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do here, I've got my Mr. Tool Cleaner, and I'm just going to get a tiny drop on a pipette and just put it in like that, just a tiny drop. Okay, so I've got that on my pipette, and I can blow that back through. Okay, and what that's doing is just removing, it's thinning the paint that's in there. And then I can get my paper towel, and with these tiny cups it's not so easy, so sometimes it's better to put the paper towel around the end of a cotton bud and then go in and just remove an excess of paint in your cup. Okay, alright, so we blow that back through, and then what I'm going to do, I've got my pot of dirty old thinner, so I'm just going to spray that into there, bring this back, there we go. So that's that all cleaned out. Now, something I sometimes do, and I don't like doing it, because sometimes you'll get the fluff off the cotton bud, but sometimes I'll go in with a cotton bud so we can wet the cotton bud in the tool cleaner, or thinners, whatever you want to use, and just remove the excess of paint in there. And then with our little finger we should be able to get in there and wipe it out. Okay, now what you can do with these cups is just take them off and soak them in a bath of thinner should you want to. Now on this one, if you remember, I spilled paint down the side, so we've got paint down on there, so we're going to remove that. Going to make sure there's no paint in that orifice there, and then and you can see the amazing polished finish in that cup. So we can just get that nice and clean. It doesn't need to be spotless. This is something that a lot of people get very, very fussy about. When you're doing a colour change, I mean, if I was spraying a Spitfire now, and I've done the brown camo and now moving on to the green, I would literally put some thinners through the airbrush, blow it through, and then put the green in. That's all you need. You don't need to be stripping your airbrush every time you change a colour. Now you can see, if you remember, I put that tiny little drop of tool cleaner in there, and I blew it back through, and then I blew it out. Looking down inside there now, it's practically clean already. Now I'm just going to wipe over there where that paint got into that edge. Okay, so you can see it's practically clean already. In the end here, you will get paint build up on the end of the nozzle. So you've got two options here. You can take this off. Okay, be very, very careful because now your needle is exposed and it's very easily damaged. It is a very fragile little thing, the end of the needle, and that is no matter what airbrush you buy, not just a Gaahleri. The beauty is with a Gaahleri airbrush, the needles and the nozzles are very, very cheap. Unlike my Iwata over there, where the nozzle for that Iwata costs about the same as this airbrush. So there you go. Okay, so that's that. The other way you can do this is little drop of thinners on a cotton bud. Okay, make sure you pull the needle back, go into there, and don't push, just gently turn it, and that'll remove any paint that's in there around the end of that cup. Now the next thing I would do is remove this end cap. A lot of people just take that off and leave it off. Take this out. Alright, and now I've got my needle out. I can just run down there. And I can feel this needs bedding in. I can feel it's all sort of, it needs polishing and bedding in. So this airbrush will improve with time. They quickly improve, they bed in, and then obviously over time they wear out. Now, I'm new to Gaahleri, so I'm not sure about life expectancy. Got a mark on there. I think that's just, this is what I'm saying. You see, it's probably a polishing mark. And what will happen there is it will bed in. So I'm going to put the needle back in through the back, being careful not to damage the front, just pass that through. And the reason a lot of people say they don't want to pull the needle back out, they always pull it out through the front, is when the needle's down in here, there's paint on it. And if that paint gets dried, when you pull it back, you're pulling that dried paint through that seal. Now, this Iwata here is 13 years old, and I've always taken the needle out of the back, and I've never replaced that seal. So there we go. So we've done that, we've wiped the needle off, okay, and what I'm going to do now is just put another little drop of thinners in here, another drop of cleaner. Okay, just a couple of drops, it doesn't need much, you don't need to be wasting gallons of it. And once again I'm going to blow it back through. You can see it's remaining clear. The other thing I like to do is just do that, and then that is actually cleaning the seals. There's a seal there, okay, which is PTFE. There's a seal on the back of the nozzle, which is PTFE, and there's a seal there where the paint cup goes in, which is PTFE. So that's one of the other things to consider. A lot of cheaper airbrushes use rubber seals, and when you start using hot stuff like this tool cleaner, it completely destroys them. So bear that in mind. If you're using lacquer paints, your lacquer thinners will destroy the cheaper airbrushes. They'll market them as for cake decorating or artistry or whatever, where you're using water-based products, and the seals will be fine. But with our lacquer-based paints, the seals will not be fine. Okay, so blow that out into there. And that airbrush is now clean. We can blow that out into a cloth. Just make sure everything's nice and cleanly wiped off and dry. I'm also going to get my cotton bud and go in there and make sure those threads are nice and clean of any spilled paint or anything. Because if you do get the paint build up in there and it goes rock solid, then you may well find yourself stripping your threads. Finally, if you want to, this is something I don't recommend. Okay, make sure the needle is pulled back out the way. You can go down in there with a cotton bud and clean in there. I don't recommend it. There are some sharp edges. You will get fibres off of here and it will clog your airbrush up. And then you'll have a clogged needle and they can be quite difficult to clean. Don't ever be tempted with the nozzle. Okay, I'm going to pull this needle back so it's not going to get damaged. Don't ever be tempted with your nozzle, okay, to start sticking things in there. You can get these reamers and stuff you can go in. Don't use them. Cocktail sticks, what I sometimes do is take a cocktail stick, take a sharp knife, and try and cut a little slither of wood off. And being this is wood, it's quite soft, and you can get that in there and give your nozzle a clean when it's all clogged up. Okay, a longer piece would be better. The other good way to do it is take a paintbrush. Okay, take a fairly fine paintbrush put it in your tool cleaner. Okay, that's actually got some paint left on it from where I was doing something yesterday. So that's a great advert, isn't it? Well done, Nigel. You've shown yourself off to be a fantastic carer of brushes. We can put that in there, okay, and then we can get that brush into the back of there, and we can brush around the inside. You need something with longer bristles in this case because it's such a long nozzle. Normally the nozzles are only about 3 or 4 millimeters long, but something with longer bristles would work really well. So and also keep your brushes clean as well, guys. Yeah, do as I say, not as I do, as your mum told you. So you can also get in there with a brush and clean out the back of there. It's very important. Down in the bottom of there is a hole. Okay, you see the hole, and that is where the air passes through to get around the needle. And I've heard people say my airbrush has just suddenly stopped working. And the thing I always say to people, if your airbrush has stopped working, you're not getting anything out, what I say to people is do this. Okay, so if that hole that I've just shown you is clogged, so the air can't get out past the nozzle, what will happen when you push down, you'll get nothing, no air coming out at all. Slacken that off. If you then hear air coming out, then you know it's that hole that's blocked. So just get in there with a cocktail stick, clean it out. Don't use metal tools on your airbrush. Just use cocktail sticks, slithers of wood from cocktail sticks, paint brushes, cotton buds if you must, but I don't like using them. And there we go. So we're going to loosen that nut, push our needle back into the back of the nozzle, tighten that back up, refit that cap on the back, and there you go. That's that. Job done. Now you can find the position, because when you hold the airbrush, this here is up against your hand, and you may find that when it's like that, that's a bit uncomfortable on your finger for, using it for a long time if you're spraying a big ship hull or something. So you may find that there's a certain position you find it favourite in. But that's nice and clean now, so that's that done. Put the caps back on our thinners, and there we go, that's job done. So that has been a review of stripping, using, testing, cleaning the Gaahleri Premium Mobius 0.2 airbrush. And that box weighs a ton. I'm very, very happy with it. This tool here, this piece here is the piece I didn't take out. That's just actually the body for that to slide around in. So you've also got on the bottom here, you have a valve body. That will undo. I'm not sure if this is going to fall apart, but you have your plunger there, and you have that little valve in there. I'm not sure if that's going to come apart or even if it's meant to. No, what it is, it looks like it. On these here, if you ever want to take this valve body apart, I use a pair of tweezers. Okay, you've got a brass nut in there with 2 slots. You can get in there with tweezers and undo it. Okay, and the same for putting it back in. But you can see on here how it all goes together. What's really nice about this, I'm just looking here now. Yeah, there is a seal on the top of there. Now, in something like this, you have to take this off. And as you can see, you can't remove this part of the body. This is all one piece. So basically, there is a seal up in there that stays in there. And I didn't know. And if you submerge, now and again, I will submerge the body of this in thinner to completely dissolve anything that's in there. To give it once a year, give it a spring clean. And I dissolved that seal, and that seal was £14.50. Okay, that's the seal there, which comes out with this whole body. So if I want to put this body in cleaner, I can take the seal out of there, take the packing seal out of there, take the seal out the front, and then soak the body. I know it's not going to cause any harm. But I also like this design here. It looks like this actually lines. Yes, it does. What a fantastic design. I'm going to show you something quickly just before we close. This is a wonderful design. I've got to remove that nut. I've got to wind this out. Come on, out you come. I'll get that back out of the way. Okay, you can see that lever in there. This lever in here that I'm pointing at now, that's what works when you pull back on your trigger. And basically what's happening there, I'm just moving it out of the way so I can get it in there. This is a fantastic design. Practically, every other airbrush I've seen, I haven't looked at the 6.8 and the 9.8, but basically what they have, if I take this off of here, and I take this out of here, okay, to get that back out of there, what they have is a plunger on the end. So that plunger is operating a valve down inside here. The problem with these is they can be an absolute nightmare to get back into the hole. As you can see, I'm struggling to find the hole. And I'm not play acting this, guys, it's always awkward. And this plunger is what operates on that seal that costs $14.50. And if you get that seal misplaced and then you push this plunger in, you rip that seal, and then you have to go and buy another one at $14.50. There we go, got it in, right? So that's going in there like that. That's going in the back of there. That's going to get tightened up. And then we can put the rest of the airbrush back together just like any other airbrush, okay? Whereas with this one, instead of having the plunger, they've got a ball socket in the bottom of there. So you screw this in. So what's basically happening, that is going to go onto there. So you screw this in, give it a nip, put this in the right way round. Make sure when you've got the lever out, there's a little cutout. The cutout always goes to the back. Okay, so just literally drop that in there, and then we're on. You saw how much quicker that was. Now I'm going to wind that back in. And wind this back in to hold it in there, and then put the needle back through to really hold it in there. Just going to hold the needle closer to the front so I don't damage it. Slide the needle in, put the nut on, tighten the nut, and then we can adjust that spring pressure on there, and then refit our end cap. That is a beautiful design. Well done, Gaahleri. That is brilliant. Okay, so there we go. You can see her there. There she is, the Mobius 0.2. As I say, they also do a Mobius 0.3. It's also worth remembering, as I said, with my Iwata, nozzle £55, seal £14.50. This airbrush, the nozzle for this airbrush, you saw how complex it is and all the machinery goes in. Believe it or not, it's $9.99. And the actual needle is only $8.99. So if you break your nozzle, it's going to cost you $10 to fix it. You break your nozzle on this one, which is more likely because it needs a spanner to screw it in and people snap them off, is £55. Not sure how much the needle is in there, but I think I looked at a needle and a nozzle is cheaper to buy a new airbrush. So there you go. With this one, $10 for the nozzle, $9 for the needle. It's also worth remembering you can get yourself a 0.3 nozzle and needle, again for $19, and you've got a Mobius 0.3. So there you go. You can have interchangeable needles and nozzles. You also get these seals, and as I said, the seals for this are in there. You've got two seals for the back of the nozzle retainer there, and you've got two seals for the back of the nozzle itself. You don't get a replacement seal for here, but I'm sure those seals are available, and I doubt they would wear out anyway. So, and if you do, I mean, if you do use this all the time, I'd be tempted to leave that paint cup in. The paint will get into the threads and it'll form its own seal anyway. So that's the butcher's answer anyway. So, but that's a beautiful little paint cup, and as you can see, it's got a very shiny finish inside. So you saw how easy it is to clean, and we're also getting the lubrication there, which I haven't used, putting it back together. You don't need to use it every time. But it's always worth putting a drop on the plunger, putting a drop on the packing needle, on the back of the needle there. So what you could do is actually just put some on a cocktail stick and then just put it on there and let it go through. So there we are. This airbrush to buy is $76.99. That's dollars. $76.99 US dollars. So what's that? £60. something like that. Maybe even a little bit less now because we had the budget yesterday, and I think the pound took a dive, or the dollar took a dive, I think. Or the pound took a dive. I never know which way it is. But basically, yeah, this one $76.99. The 98, which is here, which I reviewed last week, is $79.99, and this beauty here, the 68, is $59.99. Now, if you click on the link in the description below this video, that will not only take you to the Gaahleri website where you can go and see the whole range of everything they do. It will also, I have an affiliate with Gaahleri, so they will know that the traffic has come from me, and then they'll send me more good stuff to review for you. There is also, if you use the code NMB, okay, Nigel's Modelling Bench, NMB, you will get 10% off your purchase. So well worth remembering. And if you spend, I think it's $100 or $75, I think you get free postage. If you look on the bottom, I haven't got it up in front of me now, but yeah, there's a certain amount you spend and you get free postage, and their postage is very, very quick. It would appear that in the UK they have a UK distribution, so even though everything is in dollars and you think you might be buying from China or whatever, this stuff literally, they email me and say we've sent you this, and the next day it's here. And I know that a few of you have bought airbrushes from Gaahleri, and you've told me the same. It's been very, very quick delivery. So there we are. Is it as good as an Iwata? Probably not, but it's less than half the price with more features. And the big thing for me is when you do mess up, because you will bend a needle, you will break a nozzle, you will need seals. And when you think you can buy a new nozzle and needle for this less than you can buy that seal for in there, it's just crazy. And you can buy this airbrush for about the same price as that nozzle. So it's absolutely crazy, isn't it? So there we go. Go take a look at the website, see what you like. If you haven't already, go back and look at the reviews of the 68 and the 98. They also do a wonderful spray booth which has a waterfall effect in it for catching the paint. And what I like about that spray booth is three big features. One is the waterfall, because that will take the paint particles and the extractor can deal with the fumes. The also fact is it has 3 fans, so that's triple the fans. I love my Bart Sharp Twin Air one, but the triple fan is going to be amazing. And also it's tall. It's very wide and it's very tall, so that's great. I always find that mine's a little bit low. So there we go. And they're going to send me one apparently, so that's really, really good, because you guys have been buying these things in your droves and they're very happy with me, which is why they've sent me this. So thank you for watching. Go take a look on the website, get yourself a little pre-Christmas present, treat yourself, and go from there. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.